Hello, I'm Sarah from SRTT and I help busy people make self-care a priority. You're listening to Conversations with Sarah, and today I'm joined by Jen to talk about Reiki. Hi Jen.
Hi there.
Thank you so much for joining me. Yeah, I'm really good, thank you, really well. And yourself?
Yeah, I'm really good today. It's sunny where I am at the moment.
Oh, it's a little
it's
grey
all
here.
good.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. So we're going to talk a little bit about Reiki. Did you want to introduce yourself, your business, or like who you are?
Yeah, of course. So my name's Jen Harl, and I'm a Reiki master teacher of Usui Reiki and Karuna Reiki, which is a sort of lesser known type of Reiki. And a couple of years ago, I left a very unhappy legal career. I was a personal injury solicitor for about 10 years, and I set up my Reiki business, which is called Real Life Reiki. And the idea behind sort of the name Real Life Reiki is that Reiki and holistic things shouldn't just be something like really esoteric and woo-woo and out there. It should be something that is actually practical and usable in your everyday life. So this is how I sort of teach my students when I teach Reiki, that Reiki should be something that we use and is integrated sort of into our everyday. It should be part of our regular self-care routine to be doing self-treatments. And as part of the business that I run sort of part-time around my kids, because I'm a mum of 2 young kids as well, I do treatments and I teach Reiki, and I'm a qualified life coach and crystal healer and other things as well. But the mainstay of my business and, you know, the main thing that's been the linchpin of my own health journey is Reiki.
Yeah.
So for some people who may not know what Reiki is, because this is always the first hurdle I have to overcome, because some people might have heard of Reiki but not really be sure what it is.
Yeah.
And that's Reiki is a hands-on healing technique.
Yeah.
So people think it's a bit like a massage, but it's not. It's not like you don't move your hands around like you're manipulating the muscles or the tissue or anything like that. The way I do Reiki is mainly based on the chakra system. Also bits of the physical body, like we don't just leave out the arms and legs and things like that. But mainly, because it works on all levels, it's physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. So I find that the people who are drawn to me really need that chakra-based approach. So we work on the sort of the energy centers of the body, because trauma can be stored in there, you know, trapped energy can become stagnant in those areas. So we work on releasing that, mainly sort of from the chakra base. So it's a hands-on healing technique that I focus mainly on the chakras, but obviously we do, you know, little bits on the arms and legs as well. It can be used to heal any sort of physical ailment. So if somebody's, like one of my students dislocated her knee, and she came to me for treatments on that and helped heal that. Some people come for sort of issues that aren't physical based, like insomnia. I get quite a few people who've got emotional trauma. And Reiki can really help release that, because you know, the traditional thing is to go for counselling when you've got any level of trauma. But for some people, if they're not aware of what the issue is, because sometimes these things are deep-seated from childhood, and everyone's like, oh, but I had a great childhood, I don't, you know, they're not aware of the problem.
Well, that's the thing with trauma, we think it's this really, really big event that was life-changing, and trauma can be something really quite small in the scheme of things that our body has internalized and held on to. It's talking therapies. I'm a really big advocate for talking therapies, but as you say, if you don't know what the problem is, you can't unearth, you know, you can't necessarily tap in.
And I really like using Reiki to raise awareness. So people come to me and think, oh, I'm absolutely fine. And then I do them a Reiki treatment and very gently say to them, well, actually, you've got this level of trauma stored in this chakra. This is probably a childhood issue. And it brings their awareness to it. And actually, when you talk to them, and this is why I qualified as a life coach as well, because I found that when I was giving feedback after Reiki treatments, I was kind of like dispensing this advice and sort of practical advice anyway. So I thought, well, let's get qualified in that, and I can sort of really use the two systems together. And then you find that once you've got that awareness for the person, then they have the option to go off and do a talking therapy or some different kind of treatment to access that trauma once they've actually become aware of it. So I find Reiki a really good tool for raising that awareness of what's stored in the body and in the energy system. Because if you're only thinking, you know, your issues are in the conscious mind, if you're not aware of something there, Reiki is brilliant at that, at raising that awareness, bringing it to the surface, and then you have options to tackle it. And Reiki can be one of those options to continue working with it. But then once you've got that awareness, you've got a choice and loads of other possibilities.
Yeah, and that's what it's about, isn't it? It's choice, being able to, once you recognize that there's something you want to change, having that choice with how you work with that. So how did you first discover Reiki? What brought you to it?
Well, I was a newly qualified solicitor. I was sort of a couple of years into my legal career, and I had a bad relapse of ME. I've had ME since I was 17. It took me 9 years to get a diagnosis, which is a whole other story.
Yeah.
But because I kind of figured out in my late teens that I wasn't able to rely on Western medicine, because my doctor was repeatedly telling me there's no such thing as ME doesn't exist. And I was diagnosed with depression at 19, and I was on and off different antidepressants that gave me hellish side effects. And then I was on tablets to treat the side effects of the tablets.
Yeah. It's a story I've heard many times.
Yeah. So I kind of figured out in my late teens and early 20s that I can't rely on Western medicine to help overcome this. So I kind of turned to things like life coaching books, self-development books, holistic techniques. And it was when I had a really bad relapse of ME when I was a couple of years into my legal career. So that would have been probably about 2011, I think it was. I think it was about 10 years ago now. And I got signed off work for a month. And I got a couple of weeks into this month and I thought, I'm not getting any better just resting. I need to do something really drastic. So I booked myself onto a week-long detox retreat down in Somerset. And I was in such a state. I was practically housebound. I mean, just getting myself down to Somerset on the suitcase. I mean, they had to meet me off the train and literally like carry me and carry my luggage. And I was in such a state. And part of that week, we had the option to access lots of different therapies, some of which I'd tried before, like acupuncture, and some of which I hadn't heard of before. And I'd never heard of Reiki, and it was on offer in this detox retreat. And I thought, well, this sounds a bit weird, but it's about energy. And I have no energy. You know, the whole point of ME, it's a deficiency and a depletion of energy. So I thought, well, I'll give this a go. It sounds a bit weird, but at this point, I'm so ill, I will try anything. Quite often how people come to Reiki. Because
exactly what I was thinking.
But let's give it a go. And you kind of get to the point of desperation where you're just like, I don't care how weird it sounds, I'm going to try anything. And I had such a strong reaction to that first treatment. It was like, I couldn't come down from it afterwards. It was like I felt bigger than my body. I felt like the Michelin Man. I was like, my head was like 3 meters above my actual physical head. And the lady who did the treatment said to me, if you've had that strong a reaction to it, I think this is going to be something that's actually really beneficial for you. And this could be, you know, a really beneficial part of your healing journey. So I went home and I found someone in my local area who did treatments, and I continued having treatments. And then I kept in touch with the lady who did it on the detox retreat. And she said to me, you know, if you're enjoying your treatments, why don't you think about doing your level 1? And I was like, you what? I didn't realize that I could learn to do Reiki.
Oh, wow.
It had never crossed my mind. And it was when she said to me, you know, consider doing your level 1. So I asked the lady who was giving me my treatments, and she was like, oh yeah, brilliant, I'll introduce you to my teacher. And it was like, you know, when you have a connection with someone just as soon as you meet them. My Reiki teacher, she's retired now, bless her. But Christine was like my second mum. She still is she's like my spiritual mother. And I had such a a reaction to learning Reiki and the attunements as well, I very quickly, within a couple of years, was attuned up to master teacher. And then because Christine taught Karuna as well, which is the different type of Reiki, you can only learn Karuna once you're an Usui Reiki master.
Okay.
So I did my Usui Reiki first. That's the main type of Reiki that most people.
That's the Reiki that I'm trained in. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't realize you were trained in Reiki too.
Yeah. It's not something I'm super out about, actually. So I'm trained to level 2. I am currently doing some masters training, and for me, it's been a really, really long journey. That's why I was really, really interested in speaking to you, who, you know, it is you seem so passionate about it. And I'm quite, you know, I do Reiki, you know, because it doesn't always fit for me with my logical brain. Like as you said at the beginning, it can seem really, really woo, but over the years I've kind of come to peace with how I feel about the energy and all of that other stuff, and I'm much more open about it now. But still not something that I often offer as a treatment. But so well, I'm still working on that.
It's not the main part of your path. You know, each of us are drawn to different things. I mean, I have different things that I do that are sort of lesser therapies for me. So yes, I use crystal healing, but I use it mainly for myself. I don't often get people coming to me for crystal healing treatments. So some things, you know, you might have learned Reiki just for you. And this is such a common misconception about Reiki. People think that you should only learn Reiki if you're going to, you know, hold yourself out as a Reiki master and start a business with it. And actually, I encourage, like, anyone should do their level 1, because it is such a day-to-day tool for self-healing, self-calming, self-soothing. You know, as a mum, I'm a single mum of 2 young autistic boys, and they've got very opposite types of autism. So our house is very energetically interesting because there's so much going on. And I use my Reiki on the boys literally every day. I use it for clearing in the house literally every day. And if I didn't have that, I dread to think what state we would be in.
Yeah.
Because when you're in difficult circumstances, you need a big toolbox to be able to call on.
Absolutely. And that's what I love. Like, there's so many different therapies that we can do for ourselves at home. We don't need to go out to a practitioner. Obviously, you know, sometimes we need support and we need to work with somebody else. But like you said, with Reiki, doing your level 1s does enable you to work with yourself and just tap into yourself a little more and gain more understanding about what's going on inside your body and what it is that you need.
Yeah, and the effects that I see in my students, I mean, there's one lady who came to me for level 1 about 18 months ago. She did her level 2 last summer. She's booked on to do her level 3, but obviously all the lockdowns in between haven't, because I've had to shut the business for several periods where I've not been able to teach. But the changes she's made in her life in 18 months, like just things like redrawing boundaries, having a strong self-care routine, the knock-on effects that that's had on her work, on her family relationships, on her opinion of herself and knowing her own self-worth. It's really highlighted to me what a difference it makes. I mean, I look at my own life and think, oh my God, from where I was 10 years ago to now, and the changes that I've made. And Reiki has supported me through all of that and through some really difficult decisions and really difficult times. And Reiki is not just a treatment like, you know, some people have a massage like once a week or once a month or something. And it has a beneficial effect, you know, a little bit afterwards, and then you have to go back again and again. Reiki, once you've got that power in your hands, it's not just about the time that you're using it physically hands-on. It's about the changes in your energetic system that it brings and the changes that you then bring into your life. Because like we said earlier, it raises your awareness of stuff that you may not previously have been aware of. And once you have that knowledge and that understanding, I think the main thing it does is increase self-compassion. And
absolutely.
that has such a knock-on effect in your everyday life, because once you're kinder to yourself, I mean, I think about how I used to speak to myself when I was younger and how I used to think about myself. I can't believe, like, I would never dream of speaking to anyone else like that, but I would say it to myself.
Yeah.
Now, the difference that Reiki has made in my life, and it's a slow process. It's not like you learn your level 1 and you're immediately, you know, completely in love with it.
It's a journey, isn't it? It really is a journey. Like, I know for me, it's almost cyclical. You know, I'll be out about it and I'll do a little bit of work, and then it's like, oh, okay, and kind of go back into myself. But you know, as you're talking, I'm realizing, absolutely, like the Reiki principles are underpinning principles that I do draw into other areas of work. So like you say, once you just that level 1, or even hearing this kind of conversation and being curious about it and opening your mind to the possibilities, even that can make such a difference, can't it?
It makes a massive difference. And I find that once people have started on that journey, it's like the door has been opened and they just literally fall down the rabbit hole, because it opens so many other options for them. So I see, you know, level 1 Reiki as kind of a spiritual gateway and like a self-care gateway, because it's, you know, yes, it's part of the journey, but it's a key part of the journey that opens that door so that you can see the path ahead. Because I mean, especially coming from my point of view, my own journey, because part of my issue was very severe chronic depression. And I've gone through periods in my life where I've literally been suicidal, I've been self-harming, and Reiki was part of my journey in overcoming that.
Yeah.
And yes, I still have issues. If I don't keep up my self-care routine and don't keep up my self-Reiki, I know immediately what's going to happen, and I start spiraling back down. It's like weeding a garden. You can't just weed it once and say it's done, because those weeds will
exactly. Yeah.
You've got to keep doing the work.
Yeah.
But my Reiki is so instrumental to what I do every single day. It's a massive, massive part of that journey. And I think especially when you do sort of suffer with depression, it's just such a soothing thing to be able to have that skill to treat yourself in that moment and physically put your hands on, you know, for me it's either my heart or my solar plexus normally where I carry stuff around. But also just the compassion and the self-awareness, because I know when my mood is starting to dip and I can choose to go and do something about that that's more positive. Whereas previously I wouldn't have that awareness and I would just spiral down and down and down until I got to a crisis point. And as a mum, when you get to the point where you think your kids would be better off without you, I mean, that's the most frightening thing. Yeah. It's, I can't even find words to describe it when I've been at points where I felt like that. And to actually come back from that and have a practical tool that raises my self-awareness. And over the years, I mean, it's been about 10 years now since I've been doing Reiki, 9 years since I started learning Reiki. And the changes that it's helped me make in, you know, what my life looks like day to day. Like I've left an unhappy career. I've now left an unhappy marriage. I'm looking after my kids a lot better because I've got the headspace that was taken up by my husband and my career. It makes such a difference. And, you know, people who don't know about Reiki will be thinking, you know, how can you credit Reiki with contributing to all of that? That was just decisions that you made. But actually, it's the Reiki that starts that journey. Because, you know, if you'd said to me 10 years ago, you're going to be running your own business and you're going to be a single mum and you're going to be thriving at life. Yeah. I would have been, you are kidding me. That's not going to happen. I would never have the bravery and the self-belief to do that. But Reiki that has allowed me to do that. And I still have days where I'm kind of like, oh, do people hear what I've got to say today? You know, do people really want to hear that from me? Or shall I hide today?
And that's being human, isn't it? That is,
Absolutely. Yes, I am infallibly human. I am
Yeah.
always, but I have that kindness to myself now that when I have a day like that, I'm not beating myself up about it. I just go,
Yeah.
you know what, I don't feel like doing this today. Shall I work with my energy and go do something different? Or do I
Yeah.
actually really need to do this and just let's push through this today and then we'll do something different afterwards? You need to look after yourself tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I still have options. It's not, you know, how some sort of spiritual people are like, well, I don't feel like doing this today, so I'm going to work with my energy and not do this. And then you never get anything.
Yeah.
Like constant procrastination. And that's where I was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And now, like, continuing to work with the Reiki. And for me, part of my journey has been not only learning Reiki for myself, it's actually starting the business and teaching Reiki, because I have this, I don't know if you'll identify this as well, Sarah. I have a massive blind spot when it comes to myself. So I can dispense advice to everyone else. I am terrible at taking my own advice.
Yeah, I give great advice. I just don't listen to it.
So for me, like, seeing the changes that Reiki has made in my students, telling my students to look after themselves, I then have this little angel on my shoulder going, Jen, you know, you're talking to yourself as well, don't you? Like, you need to listen to this too.
I often hear myself sort of, you know, dispense words of wisdom as we do, you know, this curious question about such and such. And I'm like, absolutely, that's what I also need to be hearing right now. I think it's amazing that, you know, we often get connected to the clients that encourage us along our own journey as well to enlightenment.
Reiki is really good at that. You know, the Reiki energetic theory is that every person who wants a treatment will be attracted to the right practitioner or master for them. Everyone who wants to learn, every student will be attracted to the right teacher for them. And me as a teacher, I will attract the right students who I can do the best work with and help them the most. But my students are my best teachers. I learn every day from my students. And I think this is true of life. You know, I could find someone who I could teach so much to, and there will still be something that they can teach me, because we're all on different journeys. You know, I've got some students who we have reciprocal arrangements with because they're, you know, ahead of me in some other therapies. Like, I've got one of my students does reflexology, so I go to her for treatments and learning about that. But I'm her Reiki teacher. So we're adding to each other's skill base. There was a sound therapist who I went to for treatment who is now one of my students. So it's all, and I think holistic practices work so well together in conjunction with each other. And it's a cumulative effect. And I think that's really the approach I take to my self-care as well, because it's not just, oh, well, I do my self-Reiki every day and that's it. Because the Reiki can be used with so many other things. Like the other day, I was feeling a bit tired after lunch. I was like, right, I've got a bit of time. Now, previously, I would have been like, oh, I'm going to go have a 3-hour nap because I feel really rubbish. This time, I'm like, I'm going to do a yoga nidra and a crystal healing. 40 minutes later, absolutely on top of the world again. Because I've got that toolbox now to know what I need. And the self-awareness. And I think definitely for me, you know, I still suffer with depression if I don't look after myself. I still have relapses of ME if I don't look after myself. So I know that I've got to support myself in various different ways. And actually, one of the things I do when I'm an avid list maker, because I have so much going on, my to-do list every week, I started splitting into sections. So I've got like stuff around the house and with the kids and work stuff. I have a separate bit for appointments so that I don't miss anything that I'm meant to be a certain time. And I have different lists for self-care and personal development, because I love learning, but I have to limit myself. Otherwise, I'd just do a load of personal development and not actually get any work done in my business. Self-care is literally a separate to-do list that I see as equally important to everything else, because I know if I don't do that self-care, I'm not going to be able to do any of the other stuff the week after. because
No.
I've got to keep my energy up. I've got to look after myself.
Yeah.
And especially when I'm running my own business, I'm in charge of my own schedule. And I'm a single mum of 2 kids with additional needs. So if I fall to pieces, there are so many other things around me that fall to pieces. Like, I can't be there for my clients. I can't be there for my students. I can't be there properly for my kids. And that is not why I'm here on this earth. You know, nobody gets up in the morning to think, I'm going to do this really badly today.
No, of course
we
not.
all
Yeah.
the best that can be. And it's having that awareness as to what I need to do for myself, that I can then give the best to everyone else.
Yeah, and that I completely agree with that. That for me, self-care has to be the foundation of everything I do. My entire life, my entire business revolves around my self-care. I have chronic health conditions as well, so I've been on that journey of working long days doing massage, being really, really busy doing client work, and you know, all of the things that we do in life. And when I got my diagnosis, I was practically bedridden. I had to spend time kind of really listening to myself and evaluating the way in which I lived my life, and working out what was working for me and what was not working for me. And as soon as I forget about self-care, that is when things start to fall down for me. So yeah, absolutely. If you're not looking after yourself, you can't look after other people. I fundamentally believe self-care has to be the foundation of everything that you do. But unfortunately, as a society, we're not taught that. That's not the societal expectation. It's kind of self-care is almost like a thing we do at the end of the day if there's some time left, maybe.
Yeah, like an optional extra.
Yeah. So like some sort of decadent treat that we have for ticking all the other boxes. Whereas for me, it's like, no, self-care is the foundation. If you're looking after yourself, then you're able to go out and thrive in the other situations. You know, the people that are around you, you can give so much more because you've got it to give, and it's boundaried.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I found as well, when I left my legal career and set up my own business, I was like, brilliant, I'm doing holistic things all day, every day. This means my life is now perfect. And I was like, actually, now I'm running my own business. No one's ever taught me how to run my own business. I learned like sales, marketing, business admin. And I was going through this journey of, oh, my life's meant to be brilliant now. And actually, this is really hard work and I'm struggling with this. Yeah. But then I sort of went through this period of, I wasn't openly talking about that because I was kind of like, you know, to all my friends who thought I was mental for leaving a well-paid legal career, because I'd done it for 10 years. I was pretty successful. I was pretty well paid. And I walked out of a well-paid job with no plan other than I have to start my own Reiki business, because I'd nearly done it a couple of times and just not had the bravery. And it got to the point where I was so ill and I had another relapse of ME. And you know, when you ignore the universe's signals and they just give you something bigger and bigger until you can't ignore.
Hello.
So I nearly jumped ship and set my Reiki business up a couple of times, and I just lost the bottle basically. And it got to the point in my last legal job where I had a relapse of, like, I was suicidally depressed. I was ridiculously ill with ME, but still trying to work full time. And actually my job was 5 minutes away and I had keys. So quite often I would work 9 till 5, come home, put the boys to bed, go back to the office and work 8 till midnight. Because I was so ill and I'd lost so much productivity that even though I was working all the hours, I wasn't getting through the work. So it was this like vicious cycle of, how can I be getting nothing done when I'm working these long hours? I ended up with chronic tonsillitis, so I couldn't even speak to my clients on the phone because I lost my voice. I had plantar fasciitis in both feet, which is excruciating. And if I sat down for longer,
if that's not the universe telling you to slow down.
I know. So by the time I went to the doctor, the physio literally said to me, it's a good job you're a human and not a horse, because we'd literally just put you out of your misery. You've got that much. So it was kind of like, I have to do this. I know that it's what I'm meant to be doing. I just need to find a way to make this work. But then I went through this period of, I'm not putting myself out there, because I hadn't done the work on myself. So I wasn't actually going out finding clients, going out finding students, because I was just hiding, because I still had this massive self-worth issue that is deep rooted from childhood. And part of my journey over the last couple of years, it's like, you know, jumping ship and starting my own Reiki business is not the end of my journey and now everything is rosy.
Yeah.
It's like the next phase. It's like it's stepped up a gear.
Yeah.
And especially with the pandemic last year, like if I think about what I've been through in the last year, like I was on holiday when the pandemic hit. So I basically got stuck on the other side of the world when coronavirus hit. I was staying with family in Sydney.
Oh my goodness.
And I was away, and my kids were 3 and 7 at this point, and I was away for a full month, not knowing when I could get back to them.
Wow.
It was frightening. It was horrific. Yeah. And then when I did get back, and we were all locked in a house, and as a neurotypical locked in a house with 3 autistic people, I can't even describe how difficult that was to try and balance everyone's needs. My husband, who has Asperger's, couldn't cope with that. So I made the decision that had been coming for a long time, that actually it was best for us to split, best for all of us. And I had this sort of massive spiritual up-leveling over the last year, that the more I did work on myself, the more I understood the decisions that I'd made. Yeah. And start unpicking them, but unpicking them in a compassionate, loving way. Yeah. So like I'm still, learning to co-parent, in the middle of a divorce, but I don't bear any malice against my husband. Yeah. If I didn't have Reiki and didn't have all the holistic techniques that I use, I don't know how I would have survived the last year. Yeah. I look at the fact of what I've been through in the last year, and I'm just like, oh my God, how am I still standing? But I'm not just still standing. I'm actually like, no, I'm feeling really positive about life. Yeah, I have the down day. We all do. But actually, I feel more empowered by it because I'm living my purpose. I know that I make a difference to people. There will be a reason why I have been given as a mum to my 2 kids, who I love them dearly, but they are not easy kids to deal with. Yeah. Really bless them. But there will be a reason why they are with me and my clients, my students, and my business. When you run your own business, you'll have some days you're literally tearing your hair out, and some days you're like, yes, why I'm on this earth. And for me, it's about how I deal with the good days and celebrating my successes, and the bad days, and actually, well, how do I get this back up again? One bad day doesn't have to spiral into a bad week and a bad month. Absolutely. Because I feel empowered, and I've got the tools to use to actually see why I'm here and who I'm helping. And I think that makes a massive difference. Yeah, and you can hear that when you talk about it. You can really hear that sort of passion that you have for Reiki, and applying it to your own life as well. It's not just something that you do for the sake of doing it. It's a real passion and belief that has made a difference for you, so you can see the difference that it's going to make for other people when they connect with you. Absolutely. And this is how I teach Reiki as well. I strongly advocate to all of my students, this is not just a one-day course and you get a certificate and I wave you off and away you go. It's about having that ongoing support. So the way I teach, I tell all of my students, if you've got any questions, even like 10, 20 years down the line, I give unlimited follow-up support to all of my students. Once lockdown has reopened again and I'm allowed people, because I teach and treat from this is my Reiki room I'm in now in my home.
I am in my treatment room in my home.
So I have regular Soul Tribe nights. Soul Tribe is what I call my student group. And we have Soul Tribe nights once a month where we do, we talk about how we're using Reiki, and we talk about, what difference it has made for us so that we can all learn from each other. Like I said earlier, my students are some of my best teachers. And then we can do group treatments as well, because when you're using Reiki, it's not just about using it for yourself, it's about interacting with other people. And actually the chance to join in a Reiki share and group treatments is something really special. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to do that with your Reiki.
It's not something I've felt, and I guess the word is brave enough to do yet. I've more stepped out of that comfort zone through like the lockdown period, and I've connected with some other like Reiki practitioners, but still more of an observational perspective as opposed to an interactive perspective. I mean, I know that, I'm still on that journey, and I think it must be 15 years ago, if not more, that I did my initial Reiki level 1. And it's taken me a long time. So the short answer is no, I have not done Reiki shares, but I'm stepping more into that space where I'm more open and willing to kind of get involved in doing it, which is part of the reason I'm doing the podcast and having the conversations that I'm having, being able to connect with other practitioners, because I love the sharing, the collaborative, even if I speak to somebody who's trained in exactly the same things as me, their perspectives, their learnings, their knowledge, their experiences are going to be completely different, and we'll both come away with something else. So I absolutely see the value in the shares, but I think for me, I think for me it's almost a confidence thing. I'm a very, very introverted person, which probably people think sounds really contradictory given that I'm doing all this stuff that I'm doing.
No, I totally get it. Me too.
The idea of going into a space of people that I don't know to do energy work for me is like not yet feeling that. So like listening to you talk about your tribe, it's like that's perhaps the thing for me that is missing. It's that it's not going into a space of people I don't know. It's building perhaps my own little tribe.
Well, this is why I do it for my students, because my teacher Christine, when she was running her business, she's retired now, but she had these share nights. So when I was one of her students, I went to her sort of Reiki shares, and it was a time in my life where I just had my eldest, and I was struggling as a new mum. My husband basically didn't know what to do once the baby was born, and didn't really help with anything. So I was sitting there with, postnatal depression, no family and friends close, no support from my husband. And going to Christine's Reiki shares was like an energetic family. It was the one space I had each month where I could be myself and breathe and have this sort of, I'm going through a difficult time and here is some support. And anyone else could come with that. And if someone else was having a difficult time, I would be able to support them. And then that would feed my soul, because it's part of my life's purpose to help support other people. And I remember how I felt going to Christine's share groups. So when I started my business and my teaching and started getting students coming through, I was like, I have to do the same thing. Because I know what a difference it makes. And because they're all attuned by me, it's like a Reiki family tree. It's like they're all Reiki brothers and sisters, and I'm the Reiki mummy, which I love because I'm such a nurturing, protective person. It's like I'm a mother hen with a big brood of Reiki students.
It's that. It sounds like it's that kind of soul purpose, isn't it? It's that it ignites. You can see as you're talking about it, I can hear it. It ignites that that's something that is within, that is, I don't know what the word, your heart is the word that I want to use, but I'm aware it sounds really kind of what, but it does, it ignites your heart. You can that's how it feels to me listening to you, that it's something you don't just teach it for people to pay you money and learn. It's you're living it alongside your students to enable them to to have that family. So that's,
and it's like an energetic family, and I tend to draw people to me who, like me, have difficult relationships with their earth family. I am totally the black sheep of my family. They don't understand why I left my legal career. They don't understand, they're not into the whole holistic stuff, and they think I've lost my mind in the last couple of years. Basically, they think the kind of midlife crisis I'm going through. They don't understand why somebody would leave their husband, because I come from a family where it's very much, you married him, you take whatever is dished out and you stay. But actually the best decision for the kids that I could make was us living separately and co-parenting, and everyone is happier. The whole four of us, we are happier.
And but fundamentally, isn't that what it's about, really? If you're all happy, however that situation is, that's the most important thing, to live in, for me anyway, to live in happiness.
I was raised in a family where value was put on being clever and being successful and being thin, which for me still causes difficulties because I'm not thin. Part of my depression is comfort eating and things like that. So I still, this is part of my journey that hasn't yet been unlocked. So I sort of had this, innate sense of unworthiness from childhood because value was only placed on certain things. Whereas my style of parenting is completely different for my boys, because I just think, yes, I want them to do well at school. Yes, I want them to, be good at their hobbies and things like that. But the main goals for me is, are they happy and are they healthy? Those are the two most important things, because from my life experience and my journey that I've been through, I could have a well-paid job like I had and walk out of it because I was suicidally depressed. You can't just put value on what society teaches us, gives us status. I know millionaires who are miserable. And I know people who've got next to nothing who are the happiest souls you could meet. And it's about value rather than money. And I think that's definitely one of the main things that I've learned over the last 4 or 5 years, is that it's not just about status and what society teaches us we should be doing or should be valuing. It's about deciding for yourself what you want in your own life. And if I want something different from what I was taught to want, that's why I've made massive changes to my life, because I've got that awareness now. And like we were saying, it's the Reiki that has been instrumental in having that self-awareness, having that self-compassion. And actually a big part of it for me was giving myself permission to actually say, I don't want this anymore. This isn't making me happy. This isn't making me healthy. I really want to just go do something different. And it's about empowering yourself to make that decision and give yourself permission. Because when you give yourself permission, that everything unlocks at that point.
I mean, it sounds like Reiki's made such a difference to your life, and I'm really thankful that you shared that with me today. I am noticing the time, realizing I kind of need to start bringing it to an end, which is the bit that I'm not so good at.
So Reiki all day.
Completely, that's the thing. I get so engrossed in what we're talking about, and I love these kind of conversations, because it really does make me kind of think about the things that I do, and why the things that I'm not, more often than not, the things that I'm not doing and why I'm not doing them. And so I could sit here and probably talk all day with you, but I don't know how to edit that well. So if it feels okay for you, it's now an okay for us to sort of bring it to a close. And perhaps you would agree to come on another time. We'll have a chat after this. Perhaps you'll agree to come on another time and talk about some more stuff, because even though I've done Reiki training, I've thought about things that I'd not thought about before. So it's been, it's been really, really interesting and useful to me. So
every lineage does things slightly differently. So you could get 10 people who do Reiki in a room, and we're all going to have different things to talk about.
Yeah, so,
absolutely.
And our life experiences come into it as well, don't they? So thank you.
I'm very happy to come on, and if anyone's been listening to this and wants to know more, I'm very happy for people to contact me either by email or social media. Or
I'll be popping all our links. Yeah, I'll be popping all our links in the description. So if people feel like they want to get in touch with you, then they'll absolutely be able to do so.
Excellent. I'm always happy to answer any Reiki questions. It's shutting me up, that's the problem.
Yeah. So I'm going to be messaging you some questions too. But thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.